let us talk about agricultural ecology. Ecology is the study of how living organisms interact with each other and with their environment. Agricultural ecology applies these concepts to farming. Understanding agricultural ecology helps farmers work with nature instead of against it. This is topic 4. We are discussing agricultural ecology. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what agricultural ecology means, ecosystems and their components, food chains and food webs, nutrient cycles, ecological factors affecting agriculture, and how to answer exam questions. Take your notes. Let us go. First, what is agricultural ecology? Agricultural ecology is the study of ecological processes in agriculture. It examines how crops, livestock, soil, water, pests, and beneficial organisms interact on the farm. It also examines how farming affects the surrounding environment. Agricultural ecology helps farmers design systems that are productive and sustainable. It emphasizes using natural processes to reduce the need for chemical inputs. Now let me explain the concept of an ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living organisms and their physical environment functioning together as a system. Every farm is an ecosystem. It has living components and non-living components. The living components are called biotic factors. They include crops, weeds, insects, birds, earthworms, bacteria, fungi, and livestock. The non-living components are called abiotic factors. They include soil, water, air, sunlight, temperature, and nutrients. All these components interact. They depend on each other. If one component changes, the whole ecosystem can change. Now, let me explain food chains and food webs. A food chain is a sequence of organisms through which energy flows. Each organism eats the one below it and is eaten by the one above it. A simple food chain might be grass, grasshopper, frog, snake, hawk. Grass is the producer. It makes its own food through photosynthesis. Grasshopper is the primary consumer. It eats the grass. Frog is the secondary consumer. It eats the grasshopper. Snake is the tertiary consumer. It eats the frog. Hawk is the quaternary consumer. It eats the snake. Energy flows from the bottom to the top of the food chain. Only about 10% of the energy at one level passes to the next level. This is why there are fewer top predators than producers. A food web is a network of interconnected food chains. Most ecosystems have complex food webs, not simple chains. For example, the grasshopper might be eaten by many animals, not just frogs. The frog might eat many different insects, not just grasshoppers. Food webs are more realistic than food chains. They show the many feeding relationships in an ecosystem. Now let me explain nutrient cycles. Nutrient cycles are the pathways by which nutrients move through the ecosystem. The most important cycles for agriculture are the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, and the water cycle. The carbon cycle moves carbon through the environment. Plants take carbon dioxide from the air during photosynthesis. They use it to make carbohydrates. Animals eat plants and obtain carbon. When plants and animals die, decomposers break down their bodies and release carbon back into the air. Burning fossil fuels also releases carbon. The nitrogen cycle is very important for farmers. Nitrogen is essential for plant growth. Plants cannot use nitrogen gas from the air. They need nitrogen in the form of ammonia or nitrate. Nitrogen enters the soil through several processes. Nitrogen fixation is the conversion of nitrogen gas into ammonia by bacteria. Some bacteria live in root nodules of legumes, like beans and groundnuts. Other bacteria live freely in the soil. Nitrogen also enters the soil through lightning and through fertilizers. Nitrification is the conversion of ammonia into nitrate by bacteria. Nitrate is the form that plants can use. Assimilation is the uptake of nitrate by plants. The plants use nitrogen to make proteins and other compounds. Ammonification is the conversion of organic nitrogen back into ammonia when plants and animals die. Denitrification is the conversion of nitrate back into nitrogen gas by bacteria. This returns nitrogen to the air. The phosphorus cycle moves phosphorus through the environment. Phosphorus comes from rocks. Weathering releases phosphorus into the soil. Plants take up phosphorus. Animals eat plants and obtain phosphorus. When plants and animals die, decomposers release phosphorus back into the soil. Phosphorus can also be lost through erosion. The water cycle moves water through the environment. Water evaporates from the surface, condenses into clouds, falls as rain, and flows back to the ocean. This cycle is essential for agriculture. Now, let me explain ecological factors affecting agriculture. These are the environmental factors that affect crop and livestock production. They are divided into biotic factors and abiotic factors. Biotic factors are living factors. They include pests, diseases, weeds, predators, pollinators, and beneficial organisms. Pests are insects, birds, rodents, and other animals that damage crops. Diseases are caused by fungi, bacteria, and viruses. Weeds are plants that grow where they are not wanted. They compete with crops for water, nutrients, and light. Predators are animals that eat livestock. Examples include lions, leopards, and hyenas in some areas, and snakes, hawks, and foxes in others. Pollinators are insects and other animals that transfer pollen between flowers. Bees are the most important pollinators. Without pollinators, many crops would not produce fruit. Beneficial organisms include predators that eat pests. Ladybugs eat aphids. Praying mantises eat many insects. Earthworms improve soil structure. Decomposers break down organic matter into nutrients. Abiotic factors are non-living factors. They include climate, soil, and topography. Climate factors include rainfall, temperature, sunlight, wind, and humidity. Rainfall is the most important factor in many areas. Crops need water to grow. Too little rain causes drought. Too much rain causes flooding. Temperature affects how fast plants grow. Different crops need different temperatures. Sunlight is needed for photosynthesis. Wind can damage crops and cause erosion. Humidity affects the spread of diseases. Soil factors include soil type, soil depth, soil fertility, and soil pH. Sandy soils drain quickly but are less fertile. Clay soils hold water but are hard to work. Loam soils are best. Soil depth affects how deep roots can grow. Shallow soils cannot support large plants. Soil fertility depends on the availability of nutrients. Soil pH is a measure of acidity or alkalinity. Most crops grow best in neutral soil with a pH around 6.5 to 7. Topography factors include slope, aspect, and altitude. Steep slopes are prone to erosion. South-facing slopes are warmer. High altitudes are cooler. Now let me explain the concept of carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of organisms that an ecosystem can support indefinitely. If the population exceeds the carrying capacity, resources become scarce. The population will decrease. On a farm, carrying capacity depends on the amount of land, water, and nutrients available. Overstocking means keeping too many animals on a piece of land. This leads to overgrazing, soil erosion, and land degradation. Farmers must stay within the carrying capacity to keep their farms productive. Now let me explain the concept of ecological balance. Ecological balance is a state where an ecosystem is stable and sustainable. Populations of different species are in balance. Pests are controlled by natural predators. Nutrients are recycled. Soil is protected from erosion. Human activities can disrupt ecological balance. Clearing forests, overgrazing, overfishing, and using too many chemicals can throw the system out of balance. When balance is lost, problems like pest outbreaks, erosion, and pollution occur. A common exam question asks you to define agricultural ecology and explain the components of an ecosystem. Here is a sample answer. Agricultural ecology is the study of ecological processes in agriculture. An ecosystem has biotic factors, which are living things like crops, pests, and beneficial organisms, and abiotic factors, which are non-living things like soil, water, and climate. All these factors interact. Farmers must understand these interactions to farm sustainably. Another exam question asks you to explain the nitrogen cycle. Here is your answer. The nitrogen cycle moves nitrogen through the environment. Nitrogen fixation converts nitrogen gas into ammonia. Nitrification converts ammonia into nitrate. Assimilation is the uptake of nitrate by plants. Ammonification converts organic nitrogen back into ammonia. Denitrification converts nitrate back into nitrogen gas. The nitrogen cycle is important because nitrogen is essential for plant growth. Another exam question asks you to distinguish between biotic and abiotic factors. Here is your answer. Biotic factors are living factors like pests, diseases, weeds, pollinators, and beneficial organisms. Abiotic factors are non-living factors like rainfall, temperature, sunlight, soil type, and topography. Both types affect crop and livestock production. Farmers must manage both biotic and abiotic factors to succeed. Another exam question asks you to explain carrying capacity and why it is important. Here is your answer. Carrying capacity is the maximum number of organisms an ecosystem can support indefinitely. It is important because keeping more animals than the land can support leads to overgrazing, soil erosion, and land degradation. Farmers must stay within the carrying capacity to keep their farms productive and sustainable. Here is what you need to take away. Agricultural ecology studies how living organisms interact with each other and their environment on farms. Ecosystems have biotic and abiotic components. Food chains and webs show energy flow. Nutrient cycles move essential elements through the environment. The nitrogen cycle is especially important for agriculture. Biotic factors include pests, diseases, and beneficial organisms. Abiotic factors include climate, soil, and topography. Carrying capacity limits how many animals can be kept on a piece of land. Ecological balance is essential for sustainable farming. Practice these concepts. When you have them down, move to topic 5.